Okay, NCAA. Just so much to get into as far as the NCAA is concerned. We're going to start with the coaching carousel. I have never seen anything like this, Moj. Like, this is absolute bizarre world, because a year ago when you had COVID and everybody had reduced crowds and fewer games and less revenue, all these coaches got a mulligan. They just weren't firing coaches. They didn't want to deal with buyouts and things of that nature. Now, oh my goodness, you've got Lincoln Riley from Oklahoma, who just lost in Bedlam, so they're not a factor as far as the Big 12 championship is concerned, or the college football playoffs. He becomes the next head coach at USC. He said the night before, when he was tied to the LSU job, I am not going to be the head coach at LSU. And the next day, he becomes the head coach at SC. Who is the coach at LSU? Are you kidding me? The head coach, Brian Kelly, of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Irish Catholic guy that's a perfect fit at Notre Dame. They're on the bubble as far as the playoff is concerned. He's going to go to Cajun country. How's that going to work out? Brian Kelly becomes the first coach in Notre Dame history to leave on his own accord to another team. Wasn't fired, he just left Notre Dame, which has never happened in the history of that institution. So you look at the money, you look at the challenges, 10 years, over $100 million with incentives, and the fact that it's a challenge for him going to the SEC, it's going to be interesting. I think there's some narratives out there as far as Brian Kelly is concerned, because the feeling is he might have gone as far as he can go at Notre Dame, because you can only get a certain type of recruit there. Can you eventually, even if you sneak into the playoffs, can you win against the big boys and take home a national title? LSU gives you a better chance to do that. Lincoln Riley, meanwhile, their team's about to go into the SEC at Oklahoma. He denies this is a factor, but by going to SC, he thinks he's got an easier path to the playoff. But as far as the Pac-12 is concerned, and I'm a big Pac-12 guy, this is a home run hire, not just for USC, but for the entire conference. It's going to put more attention on them. It'll help with recruiting. It's going to raise the stakes for everybody. My Washington Huskies just hired Kalen DeBoer, the head coach at Fresno State. I think he's going to be a really good hire for them. And you've still got two big-time jobs. Oklahoma and Notre Dame, both teams are now looking for head coaches. It's going to be insane. Meanwhile, as far as college football on the field is concerned, where's Michael Toy? Where is Michael Toy?
No. I'm sticking up for the Toyminator, the boy toy here, because I know you're going to rip into him about Ohio State losing. Not losing. They got crushed like a grape against Michigan. Let's start off talking about the Apple Cup. Why not? Your beloved Huskies. And you got called out, my friend. You got called out. Check this out.
How'd you like the Apple Cup too, huh? Where's your buddy Farhan at? I haven't heard from him for a couple days. Awful quiet there. Farhan, awful quiet fella. Huh?
That's our good friend Ian Furness from Cue It Up Sports in Seattle during our broadcast, our Seattle Seahawks pregame broadcast, calling you out because he hasn't heard from you at all.
I could prove to you right now, I texted him after the game congratulating him.
Okay.
But he probably doesn't remember, because he was in all likelihood celebrating to excess. Ian, a good Washington State alum, but hey, good for them. Every dog has their day. Michigan did, Washington State did. Not much different, because the world will get restored next year. Bama, meanwhile, was awful against Auburn. But in these rivalry games, as Washington State showed us, little brother every now and again can eventually bite you. So they bit him, but they let go, because right at the end, Alabama managed to put up a prayer and send the game into overtime in the Iron Bowl, and then they wound up winning it in, I believe it was 4 overtimes, so they're still alive, because as far as the college football playoff is concerned, that would have caused massive chaos along with the Ohio State loss. If Bama lost as well, they live to play another day. Oklahoma, meanwhile, Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma in Bedlam. Back and forth game there. Oklahoma State at home. They win that game, which means they've still got a very legitimate shot to get to the college football playoff. They're in the 5-hole right now.
Yeah, you go back to that Iron Bowl and you talk about how close Alabama was to losing. The fact that Tank Bigsby goes out of bounds late in the game, costs about 30 seconds on the clock, where that might have really impacted Alabama on that drive. I mean, and how's the other thing? I mean, you hold Alabama to nothing the entire game, and then you allow them to go on a 97-yard drive. It's crazy, but that's college football. But man, they were that close. So Tank Bigsby stayed in bounds. Who knows if Alabama wins that game.
And our Canadian kid, John Mechie, with a big game, 150 yards. I think he was targeted like 24 times, got 13 passes, had a couple of touchdowns in the overtime, a big part of their success in that game. So let's look ahead at championship week, because you've got conference championships in the 5 major conferences. Also, you've got one in the We're not going to talk about the ACC, but we will talk about the AAC because Cincinnati's involved there. So let's start with the Big Ten Championship. You've got Michigan favored by 10.5 against Iowa. Iowa was ranked second in the nation earlier this year, which was a joke. Nonetheless, 10.5.
This is my college upset special of the week. Not only is Iowa going to cover, Iowa is going to win. And I'll tell you why. Beating Ohio State for the first time since, 1973 or whatever it was. I'm just joking. It's been 10 years, but you get the idea. It seems like that long, especially if you're a Michigan fan. But that was their season. There's so much. That was such a high. I see them crashing a little bit after that game. I think Iowa now is going to play giant killer. I like Iowa to come out and beat Michigan outright in this game. Iowa's a tough team. They're a little blue collar, not as fancy as most teams, but I will take Iowa to beat Michigan.
I hope you're right. I think they cover, but I'm not necessarily going to take them to win because I just think the talent gap between Michigan and Iowa is a little too wide, but it would be so Harbaugh to do this, right? I mean, and he has been lauded around football circles. They're even talking about it in the NFL. You know, like the Jim Harbaugh win was bigger than the John Harbaugh win. He compared this situation to the 1980 Miracle on Ice U.S. hockey team. He said, look, we beat the Russians, but we still have some other games to go here to get the gold medal. That's how big this is. They're talking about it in Lake Placid terms. I do think Iowa covers. I think Michigan winds up squeaking this out, but I hope you're right because I'm not a Michigan fan. Meanwhile, Big 12 championship, Baylor and Oklahoma State, two high-powered offenses. Oklahoma State favored by 6.5, and forget who you're going to pick. I'm taking the over, 45.5 in this game. The way these two teams put up offense, the way they move the ball, no way this gets held into those territories.
Well, the first time they played, though, 24-14 for Oklahoma State.
Not happening again.
The thing is, in that game, Baylor got 3 interceptions, right? I mean, so picking off Spencer Sanders 3 times and you still wind up losing by 10 points. I don't think they're going to get that luxury this time around. So I look at Oklahoma State winning this football game.
Pac-12 championship game played in Vegas. Utah favored by 3 against Oregon. Love the fact that they've gotten this game out of Stanford Stadium because the Bay Area, not a big college football hotbed. They're playing it in Vegas. Everyone's going to want to go. Utah crushed Oregon earlier this year.
38-7.
Ended their national championship hopes. And look, I predicted early that they were going to win one of these two. Can they win both?
I think they will. I mean, they ran for 208 yards the first time, dominated the time of possession. So when I look at this game again, I just see Utah imposing their will. Yeah, Oregon will probably have a spur up their butt considering the fact they got blown out the first time around. They got embarrassed, but I think Utah wins this.
Yeah, you know, Utah's got an ability to run the football, and when you look at that Oregon defense, they are suspect. And the best way to beat Oregon is to score points because as long as you score points, they can't be patient with their run game. If they're patient with their run game, it's really, really good. But Utah got out on them early in the last game, and that forced Oregon to throw the football. They're not nearly as good when they have to do that. I will take Oregon to win and cover as well. Meanwhile, the SEC championship, Georgia favored by 4.5 against Bama. And if you really look at how these two teams have played this year, Georgia should absolutely hammer Bama. But does the Saban factor, the big game pedigree, the fact that Alabama's been there, done that, they know the stakes, how much does that play into it?
Well, I think it plays into it a lot. And here's the thing that I look at. This season, Alabama has been in 5 pretty tough football games. Texas A&M, Florida, LSU, Arkansas, Auburn. They're battle tested. They know what it's like to play in games where it's a 1-score game, a field goal game, whatever the case may be. We saw how much pressure they were in that game in Auburn, and they responded. Who's Georgia been in pressure with? When's Georgia had a tough game this year? What, Clemson the first week? Is that it? Who else has challenged Georgia? How is Georgia going to react if they're down 14-0? How is Georgia going to react if they need a drive late in the game? That's what I want to see from the Georgia Bulldogs. Yeah, they're an immensely talented team. Yeah, they got a lot of great pieces, but they haven't been in those tight games. And sometimes when you do get into a tight game, you just don't know how to react.
It's Georgia's time. This is their time. They are clearly the better team in this matchup. Their defense is as good as any of Alabama's best ever defenses. This team is lights out. I do not see Bryce Young and John Mechie and these guys having any kind of success. Their offense has been inconsistent. They couldn't move the ball against Auburn. They've got 6 potential NFL draft picks on that Georgia defense. They have shut everybody down. They're going to do it against Alabama in this game. And slowly their offense has caught up. Stetson Bennett, who's been in a battle with JT Daniels for the quarterback spots, he's had multiple 4-touchdown passing games down the stretch. I think their offense can keep up against an Alabama defense that's been suspect. Yes, I get the coaching battle. I get the battle-tested part of it. But the fact that Alabama's been in so many close games this year, you think it might help them. I think it's been a complete indictment on the way that team is structured right now. Georgia is going to win. It's only a case of by how much, because if this game goes very one-sided, they're going to knock Alabama right out of the college football playoff. Finally, Houston at Cincinnati, the American Athletic Conference Championship, and what do you got? What do you got?
Oh, Cincinnati.
Cincinnati favored by 10 in this game. It matters. They're in the college football playoff right now. I'm not the only guy that thinks it.
It's a joke. They've played Notre Dame this year. That's it.
Keep going. So then they should never be allowed. At the start of the season, you're not allowed.
All I'm saying is put some teams on your schedule.
Houston is ranked.
Put some teams on your schedule that are heavyweights.
Is Houston going to win?
Houston has 30-plus points in 8 straight games. However, I think they cover, but they do not beat Cincinnati.
Cincinnati's going to win. Cincinnati's going to cover. Yeah. Cincinnati's going to be in the college football playoffs.
And you know what? I'd like to see them get in the college football playoff. You know why? Because whoever they play, they'll wind up losing by 3 touchdowns, and then I'll say, I told you so, and they don't deserve to be in the college football championship.
They do, because they've done exceptionally well over a long period of time, and whoever's been put in front of them, they've done great. Luke Fickell is an elite coach. The only thing that could derail them right now is the talk around Luke Fickell potentially going to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Because if that happens and it's a distraction while you're getting ready for the playoff, maybe that impacts them. But I think Cincinnati is for real. Desmond Ridder is for real. They're going to win this game. They're going to cover. They're going to play in the college football playoff.